Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
Y'all ever have those days where you get so thirsty you feel like you're about to die of fucking dehydration at any given moment regardless how much liquid you consume? Well, that is the story of this motherfucker's life in a nutshell. What's up everyone, Gojin the Makai Phantom here, and today we're gonna look at... I don't even fucking know, let's just get to it.
And you will also be joined by me. What's going on, guys? It's Zimzilla hopping over to Phantom's channel to talk about this egregious video that understands nothing about Godzilla and nothing about feminism within good faith.
In short, this is the beginning of a new series of content coming to my channel we're gonna call Deconstructing Insane Nonsense Online, where we look at some of the stupidest takes known to man while making fun of them along the way. And what better way to start content like this than looking at true quality content by a man so innocent he makes the Virgin Mary look like a dirty hoe you'd come by on a street corner when nobody even fucking this dude for $1. But before we dive into what we're about to look at today, I think it's fair I give a brief history lesson on who this guy is to kind of give an idea what we're dealing with. Essentially, on Twitter, I brought up his god-awful G-Gundam video with a friend and told him to watch it ironically due to the unintentional comedy. He looked himself up and it turned into a little war, if you want to call it that.
Stop! Stop! He's already dead!
We had some blows, I did some roasting, which led to him having a mental breakdown. I was gonna get things done today, but then I sat around on this hell site.
Gonna cry?
This guy got so triggered, he had to let everyone know he had other shit to do, yet still took the time out to respond. So with that brief rundown, you guys already know this dude is a massive galaxy brain. Clearly, we are simply peasants too inferior to understand such high intellect of a god in the form of a professor. But out of the absolute brilliant videos he puts out, one in particular caught my eye that just really needed to be talked about. That video is the incidental feminism of Godzilla v Mechagodzilla. You can just tell by how he gets the name wrong how well informed of a video we as the audience are about to see before our very eyes. Okay, I can't joke about this anymore. If you were too fucking lazy to put Godzilla Against Mechagodzilla, you could have just wrote the Japanese name Godzilla X Mechagodzilla. It's one fucking letter. But then again, this is what happens when you send all the important aspects of the video to your mom because your illiterate ass never learned to read. Mom, I'm working on another YouTube video.
Not now, sweetie! I'm matching you with your cousin on Tinder!
Oh, I can hear the angry comments now. Now, I'm sure there are some very special boys out there who are going to shriek about having the word feminism in the title at all, but hear me out.
Anyone else find it funny how he chose the dorkiest looking dudes possible, yet somehow they are still far manlier than he'll ever be? Looking like Soy Jack if he was the product of incest and escaped special ed class from shoving pencils up his own ass and calling them Kevin Spacey.
Contrary to what certain other people's beliefs may be, feminism is not about suppression of males or ever screw-loose nonsense got in people's heads during a certain event in 2013. Rather, it's a critical lens through which we can suppose a world free of toxic masculinity and patriarchal bullshit, generally for the betterment of people of every gender presentation.
You know what? I can agree with this! Feminism was created at a time women were undebatably being oppressed, so the intention of the movement was to give women equal rights to men, with voting being one of the most talked about ones. Many people agree with the Google definition, which isn't wrong by any stretch of the imagination, but I think the issue here is the lack of specific detail. How it began back in the day, yeah, if you weren't a feminist, you either 1, didn't pay attention, or 2, did not support equal rights to men and women. But now, since we're in a more progressive era, and have been for a while, that isn't necessarily the case anymore. I'm not gonna go into whether or not I personally think women have the equal rights to men these days, as I've seen valid arguments from friends on both sides of the spectrum. If an individual doesn't support the movement, they could still believe in women being equal to males. They just might be of the opinion that in modern day, they already have the equal rights.
Overall, his Google definition of feminism is one that most people aren't going to agree with, which is exactly why he uses it. This is often what is called a Motte-and-Bailey approach, where someone gives a very easy argument that someone can then attack. However, they will then move into a harsher argument that they will hide behind in order to dissuade someone from arguing further. In this case, saying that feminism is just the equality between the sexes sells short the fact that there are many elements within the feminist movement that do have their issues and need to be addressed. However, because we also want to push for a more egalitarian society, this causes many people who are unable to properly argue with these points to then feel like they are being sexist if they do argue against them. In any case, it is true what he's saying, but it is also dishonest with what he is saying.
So, first point by Professor Otaku was actually decent.
Consider my mind blown.
Does that mean we've actually got a watchable video ahead of us? No! No, we fucking don't!
And completely arbitrarily, it seems, we're finding it in a Godzilla film from 2002. Huh. Consider my mind blown.
And just like that, we already see this mentally ill Neanderthal clearly has no idea what he's talking about. Wait, why am I even comparing this motherfucker to Neanderthals? Those were an important piece to evolution that had the ability to learn how to hunt, teach their young, even get fucking laid. If those guys were the start of the human race, CJ is the literal fucking beta who God looked at and said, "What the fuck is this thing? You were supposed to make these in my image, you daft cunt! Get him out of here!" Yet, some point in the 90s, he ended up crawling out of the abortion bucket, and now the rest of us are made to suffer.
I don't have to do.
Okay, take him out. Security, get him out of here.
If you knew anything about this series, you chose to make an entire video talking like you haven't any idea of how the themes worked, you know that not only Godzilla has indeed been political, feminism isn't a topic it hasn't already touched. Ishiro Honda himself was an advocate for women's rights, and it was present in a lot of his work, even Gojira. His wife Kumi even helped him write certain scenes in the movies in order to bring more of that feminine touch to the scripts, as well as make female characters more three-dimensional. Remember that scene in the Diet Building where the young women were arguing with the older men on whether or not Godzilla should be public information? That was a representation of the women's suffrage movement that was on the rise while the movie was being released. Another example of actual feminism in this franchise would be Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack. It has a very good example of a headstrong female character who, despite doubts from her male co-workers and superiors, chooses to do real reporting instead of mockumentaries, and with them at her back as well as her other male friend is able to inspire hope to the citizens as Godzilla battles the guardian monsters, earning many people's respect and adoration, proving she, as a woman, is capable of all that she was doubted for.
Well, come along with me on this ride and find out. Or rant and rave like a madman in the comments, I guess, but I will be charging a $25 serve fee per 3 words over my limit of what I consider to be reasonable discourse. So, open up your wallets and let's go. Anyway.
That may come off as a joke, but Professor probably would try to charge for arguments if he could. Seeing as I've already argued with him in the comments within good faith, and his response was nothing short of extremely condescending, prominently smug, and overall uninformed about the things he's saying, while also using the same Motte-and-Bailey I had discussed earlier to argue on different points, it's very clear that this man has an extremely inflated ego.
Let's do a quick breakdown of this film. In the fiction of the film, the original Godzilla appeared in 1954, and the JSDF has been battling monsters ever since, primarily using maser cannons, which are those big, goofy satellite lightning guns that show up all over these flicks. Our main heroine, one Yashiro Akane, is a driver for one of these machines as part of the Anti-Megalosaurus Force, or AMF.
I'm so lonely, so lonely.
All that background static and silence really represents the life of Professor Otaku. I feel like we're just really getting a good look at the sad and loneliness of what he's gotta put up with on a daily basis. And I gotta say, I respect CJ for keeping the video with artistic themes to match the current topic. He's obviously using some subliminal messages to get the attention of some poor girl to come and show him a bit of love and affection. Congratulations, CJ. I'm actually starting to see some good about you. Maybe your mom will watch and play with your little baby beef jerky stick that you beat so much it looks like a bent toothpick covered in blood from some homeless dude's ass.
I am now going to assault your mind with subliminal messages. Sorry you had to see that.
Following an incident during an attack from a new Godzilla, she finds herself off of active combat duty while the government scrambles to find some sort of solution. Using the bones of the original Godzilla to create a biocomputer and the latest in technology that's basically magic.
Okay, I'll hear you out. Care to elaborate?
They create a Mechagodzilla, codenamed
moving on.
No, not that Kiryu. No, not that one either. Ugh, anything for a hashtag, I tell ya.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I could only imagine how an honest encounter with Pokimane would end up with this guy. The fucking savagery would have him on suicide watch. I guarantee it.
Nigga, you ain't funny. Maybe you're just boring as fuck. And lame as hell. Cause only lame niggas say that shit.
One of Kiryu's designers, Dr. Yuhara, and his daughter become mildly close with the rather reserved Akane over the course of the movie.
Excuse me. Mildly close? The film makes sure to establish Akane before she gets close to Sada and Dr. Uda, and it's through Akane talking to them, opening up about his wife's passing, and how that affected him and his daughter, making the interaction with them at the end all the more meaningful. Like, I'm sorry, but if these two is considered mildly close, then I don't want to imagine what he considers intimate.
My dude, we aren't going through his internet history. I don't want to learn the inner workings of Epstein's Island, okay?
But think about what I didn't add to the synopsis. The only thing that anyone gives her shit about is the accident at the beginning of the film. Colonel Togashi never treats her any lighter because of her gender, no one dotes on her, calls her stupid nicknames. Moreover, while she's part of the team, she's not one of the boys. She's not playing masculine or feminine. She's a fully developed character who happens to be female. Simple as, simple as.
Oh my god. The absolute retardation. Dude, you literally just summed up why this isn't in any way a feminist story. A film with feminist underpinning would display a social inequality brought upon by gender, which is challenged. It is often surmounted by proving the barrier against women to be flimsy by merit or present to inequality as unable to be toppled, but is causing real harm, thus requiring a social realization, therefore gender recuperation for change.
Even if the film is only subtly feminist, if it makes no commentary on societal structures affecting its character on the basis of gender, but instead, you should call a spade a giggity goddamn spade and admit the film has a female character as its lead, and that's nothing more and nothing less than what it is. That's why you need the loose definition of feminism at the beginning for it to fall under the blanket as a feminist film, hence why I believe this is a Mott and Bailey tactic.
The franchise has touched on this in certain entries.
The closest we ever get to a Godzilla film having a real feminist theme to it would be Godzilla vs. Mothra, that being the first one, of course. However, this is something that's more attributed to the character on her own, rather than it being something that overarches the themes of the film. Instead, we often see many female characters portraying a more feminine side to the franchise, as well as expressing their views, which are not shared often by their male counterparts, but not usually in a way that's critiquing that feminist critique or feminist theory would ascribe to in being a quote-unquote feminist film. This is often very nice because we're able to see both genders communicating and helping solve greater issues, but also not beating you over the head with it in a way that may be off-putting to male viewers and quote-unquote uplifting for female viewers.
Feminism is a political ideology, and feminist critique and theory branch from it. There needs to be some of the ideologies underpinning to make the critique valid and the theories around it to be vindicated. But they fall short, and only a bad faith brainlet would hold to the critique, as someone who isn't arguing his ideas from the conclusions would know when a critique style isn't valid. Do you have any idea how harmful this is for not only your movement, but women as a whole? All it does is lower the bar for what feminism can be, loosening what it actually is. Coupled with your responses to any who disagree, causing those who might have found common ground to move further from you, creating the partisan atmosphere that's defined in current internet discourse. Before you try to get this twisted, no! I'm not trying to justify any radical right-winger who lets something like this decide their view on an entire group of people. Because let's be honest, they are equally as retarded as you are. But that does not change the fact stating stupid shit like this very much makes you a part of the problem.
When she leaves office, it's not because she gets drummed out in shame, it's because her term is over.
If you unironically think that is present in any Godzilla movie, you are beyond hopeless.
It's odd that he makes that point, considering no politicians really were drummed out of office during any of the Godzilla films. The only time politics really play a key role within a film's plot is within Shin Godzilla that came out years after this film. So really, we cannot say that her doing this or acting in this way or not getting drummed out but just having her term be relieved is just part of the story. It doesn't mean anything on a greater scale, and because her gender is not brought up by her or by any other characters in the film, we cannot attribute it to being a quote-unquote feminist moment when this is just how politics should be working and is expected to work within a liberal democracy.
This franchise had never once had any form of sexism in it. Not even in the Showa era, considering the person who made them was quite progressive for the time, and probably would still fall somewhere in the left somewhere now. He just wouldn't be radical.
One of the scientists, the one who's responsible for Kyoryu's energy resources, her beating heart, actually, and arguably why the machine wins the day at all, is also a woman, and an older one at that.
With the exception of Shin Godzilla, the politicians in these movies are usually up there in age, male or female. And even in Kayako's case, her male counterpart was young and handsome too, being Nando Yaguchi. It's not like it had anything to say about her being older, other than being accurate to what people think of when they hear the word politician. Not to mention, the dudes are just as old. What you are bringing up is a complete nothing burger to sound like you got a point, when most of what you're saying could apply to not just countless Godzilla movies, but a lot of films in general. If you're trying to say elderly men get the spotlight while old women get forgotten about, that is not the case. When actors in general get casted for a movie, TV show, or whatever, it's for the most part someone young or at the very least middle-aged. Not that old actors and actresses are rare to get a big part, they most certainly do, as their careers still go strong if they're popular. But usually when they're on, man or woman, it's an important role that you'd see from a father/mother figure or some other influence someone of that age would provide. Also, your entire point falls apart by the very movie you're analyzing. Akane is a young woman whose love interest is a male much, much older. Now, I'm not saying there's a problem with that, because I'm not a flaming retard. But if we are talking with CJ's logic, that absolutely contradicts his entire point about the Prime Minister being older. But then again, these idiots really fail to
keep that same energy.
It's things like this that matter when you're viewing things through a critical lens. You have to look for the omissions and where people are placed relative to each other in the society of your film to grasp what the film is going for.
Okay, now let's try to get an answer from someone who's not a complete retard. Anyone? Come on, don't be shy.
Or the critical lens that you were talking about is just causing you to jump out at shadows because you think things are there when they actually aren't. This is one of the biggest issues we have within higher education, where because we are taught certain critical theories and ideas and how we look at media, we then think therefore that we can look at it from that lens all the time. However, this isn't the case. Critical theories and lenses are tools that we can use to analyze media. However, any theory or tool is not always applicable to every situation. So therefore, we must be cognizant of how we use these tools in order to analyze media in a more proper way.
The cinematography agrees with me too, because even though Akane spends a bunch of time running around and doing military drills, the camera angles aren't lurid or leering, and even when she's wearing that flight suit, it's not some sort of weird skin-tight affair. It's the same one that the guys wear. There's no funky cuts or dips to speak of. It's not like Yumiko Shaku is some stranger to kind of pervy photos being taken of her, considering she was a gravure idol before she started making movies. I don't know, it's like they respect their lead actress and don't treat her like a piece of meat.
There should be nothing wrong with sexualizing characters. This kind of commentary makes it appear like there is no organic way it can happen, or that there is always a negative impact on women if a man sees one sexually on film. We aren't monoliths, and this pure tyrannical view on things only leads to more problems in real life. Also, I'd like to see you bitch about Magic Mike, multiple shoujo animes, and other things aiming towards a feminine demographic for doing the same shit towards men.
Oh, for Christ's sake, one of my best friends is a female bisexual feminist who too likes sexualization of other women. Because in the end, no harm or disrespect is being done if the actress consents to it. Is she suddenly problematic, CJ, because she likes seeing other women pop out their titties in art? No. And if you try to argue with this or ignore it, you are even dumber than I thought. And you're right, they did respect her, but it's not because they didn't get a chance to sexualize her, because the actress consents to it. Yumiko Shaku does this shit as a job, and clearly, she has no issue doing it.
Links in the description below, you thirsty little bitch.
But hey, I get it. Your type probably isn't too familiar with the word, as all that matters to old CJ is if he could slip his fingers in a hole somewhere in a subway train.
To be honest, looking at you, yeah. I wouldn't leave you alone with my girlfriend, my sister, or even my fucking grandma. I am getting incel Matt Lauer vibes here, and I do not like it. But not to get off topic here, or else I'll piss off Mama Susan. You really should have a talk about sexualization bad with the director. It would be damn glorious to see his entire world crumble by a simple scene not even featured in the movie.
水着でシャクちゃんがパチャンって飛び込んでパーってやっとのアップで撮ってさって去っていくのを1個入れればまあ訓練風景の一つという振りはできたのになって、その頃はゆとりがなかったんで忙しくて撮っとけばよかったなって今でも時たま後悔しますね。
The lack of a romantic angle, too, or rather the complete rebuffing of Dr. Yuhara's frankly painful attempts at flirting, if you call it that, is also kind of novel considering how frank and direct it is. Akane's got bigger lizards to fry. That kind of Woody Allen shit don't fly no more, bud. Probably shouldn't have flown back then either, but hey, what are you gonna do?
That's not an angle of sexism. He had a thing for her and was just really bad at showing it. The whole point of it was to build chemistry on their relationship, and the whole thing between the two is actually heartwarming, as she's by no means bothered by the attempts. The movie does not portray him as some creepy pervert who you're meant to find off-putting. In fact, you're meant to sympathize with him for being widowed, with the closest thing his daughter gets to a mother figure being Akane. If we're gonna make a joke about awkward quote-unquote flirting as either outdated or somehow wrong, then that says more about how you view other men than anything.
Looking at Akane's character, it's totally within reason for her to act the way she does. She's still probably suffering from some kind of PTSD after getting a man killed, and she doesn't want to do it again, thus act sheepishly around her comrades as well as her commanding officers. When she's around Yuhara, she understands that he's being nice and trying to flirt with her, but she doesn't try to put him off or be mean in any sort of way, and when Hayama attacks him, she defends him. Clearly, she has a want to defend other people, and she cares about life to some degree, but doesn't about her own, which is why she's piloting Mechagodzilla in the first place, and because of that, it makes sense that she wouldn't be super receptive to someone flirting with her. By the end of the film, it's clear that she doesn't hold any ill will towards him and understands what he's trying to do, but also is able to open open up because of Sarah and everyone else around her.
With the exception of the guy whose brother got killed by Godzilla because of the accident that she was a part of. And even then, he comes around on her. Even when he's giving her the gears for her mistake, it's not because of her gender, but it's because he's questioning her skills as a pilot or a driver.
And I have sorely underestimated the desperation and lengths CJ is going to just stay within some woman's good graces. Or some man's for that matter, but like, dude, if you needed help getting your balls back by trying to claim a character not being chewed out for her gender is somehow a real feminist moment, that just isn't the play, my man.
In a way, I kinda sympathize with CJ, you know? I am legit convinced the only pussy this loser ever touched was the 80-year-old nun at the Catholic Church with AIDS when he was 12. Every other relationship outside of that just ended up with him in the corner watching 50 black guys penetrate his quote-unquote girlfriend while he just sat there jerking on his little 2-incher. You gotta understand the desperation CJ's been having on his journey for just a tiny taste of a woman's vagina. But I don't think anybody wants your STDs, my guy. Not to mention you literally look like some deranged mutant who crawled straight out of Donkey's ass after fucking Shrek got done violating it.
Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star.
Hey!
Yeah?
What the hell is this?
Oh, you didn't really give any specific guidelines about mating.
Did you name it?
What?
Did you name it?
Yeah, he's Paul.
Yeah? Well, it's gonna be a hell of a lot harder for you now because he's going the overboard.
Donkey! Here's the thing. When you take gender out of the equation, then it's just a group of people having interpersonal conflict. Gender doesn't come into it, and you could replace anyone in the scene with people of any gender, and it could play out the same. You've removed the power structure from the equation, with the exception of the military hierarchy.
CJ, step up, you beautiful bastard. Come get your trophy for the most pointless fucking video of the century. All that time writing and not editing has accumulated in this one fucking line that undermines your entire giddy goddamn premise.
These roles could have been filled by male actors, and the film would have been perfectly serviceable, if completely unremarkable. But it wasn't, and so it becomes something more than the sum of its parts. What makes this movie have feminist elements is that it came together in a way that doesn't rely on gender power structures in its story when there are literally bigger fish to fry.
Considering you need to repeat yourself multiple times in order to pad out the essay to seem more in-depth than it actually is, should make things obvious that this guy has no idea what he's talking about and has very little to go off of to suit his narrative.
The primary reason that we know that the Prime Minister was changed from a male to a female, as they're originally going to be using a male, is because Kumi Mizuno was on board to take the role. Considering she is a prolific Toho actress, had been in many Godzilla films beforehand, and was a fan favorite for both Western and Eastern fans, it makes sense entirely that they chose to have her play the role. And considering that Igarashi, the Prime Minister that will come after her, is also another prolific Toho actor who had played in films beforehand, it makes sense that these two superstars should share the light. However, we should also discuss how much should be attributed to Sugu rather than Igarashi. Sugu was the Prime Minister beforehand, and she was the Prime Minister in charge when Mechagodzilla was first built. However, it was Igarashi who was the Prime Minister of the Science Division that was in charge of creating Mechagodzilla in the first place. We can't attribute too much to Sugi, however, Igarashi was the one who collected the scientists and proposed the idea of creating Mechagodzilla for them. He is also the one in charge of the Prime Minister seat during Godzilla Tokyo SOS, so it should be noted that his involvement is far greater than Sugi, who just passes the role to him.
A part of me feels like he knows this and done it in a way as a grift, but at the same time, I think that's giving CJ too much credit to even make a proper business decision to appeal to politically charged retards 24/7.
But that's the point. This movie maybe isn't intentionally dismantling the gendered power structure that is still very prevalent in Japan, and even more prevalent in the intervening years since the flick came out. But there are three very visible and very prominent female characters, all of which have a meaningful impact on the plot and resolution of this story.
Actually, I was saying the movie did it by accident. Seriously, you are the living definition of that meme in every fucking way.
Anyway, if we want to play by them rules of treating women equally as feminist, where the fuck is the incidental feminism of SpongeBob SquarePants? Where is it, CJ?
Oh wait, Sandy often runs around half naked in her home. don't want to excite them fucking furries, might encourage them to fuck the old lady next door squirrels on their free time. Oh wait, I just described Professor Otaku's entire weekend.
Well, you might be wondering to yourself, well shit, why don't more movies do that sort of thing? Well, that's an excellent question. Why don't more movies do that?
Maybe because they do, but your head's so far up your ass, you can't see past all the compact shit that's built up in there.
Well, I can scarcely wait to see the comments section on this one, but
Seeing as how he acted in the comment section, I'm surprised there even is a comment section in the first place.
if you haven't watched any of the Millennium Godzilla films and you have any love for the character at all, you are definitely missing out. The Millennium Godzilla flicks are really interesting, if a little bit on the experimental side, and while the compositing isn't always great and the CG kind of sucks.
It's an early 2000s series of Japanese movies. This is an era digital effects wasn't perfected till about 2005, and that was only for big budget movies like Revenge of the Sith or Peter Jackson's King Kong. Which is why it's important it was mainly only used when necessary, like the times they wanted to shoot Godzilla swimming, or with the massive swarm of Meganudas, since creating that much physical effects is borderline, if not completely, impossible.
Or otherwise viewing of a film is that you can make stronger or weaker efforts to do such a thing depending on how good the film is.
Here's the thing, CJ. You ain't wrong about the film having a message. The Godzilla franchise has for years. Sometimes they're political, sometimes they're not, sometimes they don't have anything to say at all. Either option is fine, as long as the artist executed their vision as they intended it to be. It is a heartfelt story that has a lot to say about redemption and how we shouldn't hold ourselves to such high standards for doing something fucked up in the past. It's a story about growth, which is why Akane changes her mind about going down with Kiru, because she discovers the beauty of life and self-love. We are worth so much more than we give ourselves credit for, and it is told through all the craziness of the franchise on a high level. Political messages are fine when they are done right. I can go on about many good stories that tell their worldviews through fiction greatly. Many are even from this franchise. What I don't like is politicizing something that wasn't the goal at all. And what I hate even more is doing it to an entire group of people. You are no better than that idiot from Geeks and Gamers. Which, by the way, for those who wants to see me do more of these commentary-style videos, I actually have a video in mind on that complete hack of a man, so look forward to that.
And although not supported directly by the text, Mechagodzilla could be an example of how the rest of the world views the rearmament of Japan, seeing as a possible protector and an ally to things like the United States and NATO, however also a destructive force that could go back into its own violent tendencies. In a way, there are many things you could draw from a film, but not necessarily supported by the text in full, especially if we're saying the film has an overarching theme like feminism. Often we can pull things from a film, have our own little takes about them, and therefore apply them to our own lives because it allows us to see things from a greater perspective or think about more complex ideas in a more simplified way, which is one of the good things about having your own perspective. But then trying to say a film is actually trying to do something, or through a quote-unquote critical lens you can see past it all and truly understand a film, is mind-numbingly dumb and egotistical to say the least.
Or it might just not be a super great film. But that's the nice thing about film critique and the death of the author and all that stuff, is that you can kind of make up, for lack of a better term, bullshit. And as long as you can back it up with actual examples from the text or the film itself, well, you know what? Maybe you can make a salient point. And if it falls apart, well, maybe you just aren't gonna get any luck trying to apply that criticism to that film.
Ironic.
If it was ever possible to physically manifest and therefore personify a word, this video and therefore CJ would indeed personify irony at its finest.
In short, this dude is an actual menace to society and needs to be locked in a fucking cage with Bill Cosby after years of not having the right to grab a piece of ass in front of him. I'm sure he's desperate for any hole he can get his hands on. Hey, maybe you two will get along if that's something you have in common, so perhaps you can serve each other's needs. You can thank me later. Or better yet, drop his ass out in the middle of the Ukraine while Putin strips away every inch of innocence his tight virgin boy pussy had since he ate his way out into the very world we know today.
Anyway, that was it for this episode. Please comment your thoughts down below, and if you like this video, please smash that like button harder than you'd smash Yumiko Shaku, share it around, and subscribe. Make sure to hit that bell for notifications to keep up to date on all my future content, and go and support my boy Zimzilla99. He is a great friend of mine who makes wonderful content, and I am thankful for him taking part in this episode. Also, go check out Anime Anteiku along with my alt tech and social media accounts. All are linked in the description below, and I'd like to thank Anime Anteiku for sharing my last video. It really means a lot. This is Gojin the Makai Phantom, leaving the building.